name's Sophie Narayan. My TED Talk is going to be around the show Game of Thrones, and it has to do with change. So, change is such a simple word, but it has a lot of meaning behind it. It's the act of making or becoming better. A lot of what we talked about in class this semester was about change and how it's scary for some people. But what if change could be for the better? What if you could take everything that's happened to you, and instead of refusing to learn from it and stay the same, you take it in and you grow from it and you become a better person? So the show Game of Thrones, it's one of the most top-rated shows in the world. Within the show, there's a lot of storylines and plots, all different to their own character, but all somehow similar in some way, and all leading towards the same path. So, two characters in particular, Theon Greyjoy and Jaime Lannister, their characters made a tremendous amount of change throughout the series. Like, you can definitely see from where they started to where they are now, and it's just like really inspiring to see how much they grew from everything that's happened to them. So, the first story I want to start off with is Jaime Lannister. In the beginning of the series, he was very self-entitled, he was selfish, he was a knight, so he believed that he was better, and his house was one of the bigger houses, so he believed that to be higher above everyone, higher above most. He didn't care much for other people. Anything and everything he did was only for himself, to benefit himself. He believed that he was better than everyone, especially when it came to sword fighting and war. His motives were only in his self-interest. That was it. He didn't anything for him and everything for him. So later on in the series, a lot of stuff has happened since the beginning. He was captured and became prisoner of war, and he met this lady right here. Her name's Brienne of Tarth. So after all that happened, he began to change for the better. His interest wasn't only his own, and he started to care for other people, not just himself. One big turning point was when he was captured. He talked back to his captors, and so he was punished. As his punishment, his hand was actually cut off. And I think it wasn't until then that he realized that he wasn't invincible anymore, that he could be touched, and it was, yeah. Later on, when he finally returned to his family, he became a more humble person in a way. His motives were not only for himself. The actions he took were not only beneficial to him anymore, but beneficial to other people around him. He began to care more for others, especially for Brienne. You can tell throughout the series that as they spend more and more time with each other, they begin to really care for each other. He became more willing to help those around him. So although meeting Brienne and getting his hand cut off was a really big turning point for him, I believe the biggest thing that really turned him into a good person, or changed into a better person, was when he left his only family behind to go fight for a great war and serve a greater purpose. So Jaime abandoned his home, everything he knew, and he knew all the risks. He knew the risks of rejection and death, but he still took that chance because he knew it was the right thing. And in the end, he became a hero that no one really expected. So the next person that had a lot of change throughout the series was Theon Greyjoy. He kind of started off as the same. He was very self-entitled. He thought to be the man. He believed he was as well better than most people, and he thought he could do whatever he wanted, like whatever he pleased. And then later on in the series, turned his back on the only people that were close to him, like his only family, who like cared for him and treated well for him. He did horrible things to them, things that were just like they never thought he would do to them, but he eventually ended up doing, only to win the approval of someone who had no real care for him. The decisions he made eventually turned on him, and he was captured and tortured. It wasn't until then that he began to realize his mistakes, and he began to feel a tremendous amount of guilt for all the wrongs he made against his only family. The biggest impact on Theon's story is when he saw one of his family members, Sansa. She was in a lot of trouble, and he risked death to save her and escort her out of a really bad situation. I think from that moment on, he wanted to change and fix the mistakes that he's done and repair and amend the relationships he's broken with the people who really cared for him. Theon was no longer the man he was, but grew into a brave man who is selfless and respectable. He would do later on in the series, he would do anything for his family. Anything. He would save them, he would rescue them, he would put himself in danger just to help them. And he became a man who would do anything for his family, and his progression throughout the show was incredible, and it just shows how it's just amazing to see the person that he has become. So, through the example of these two characters, we can see that change can really be for the better and be beneficial to a lot. It's prevalent that change is a necessity as well as a good thing. It makes people more accountable and overall, better as people. And everyone is capable of change, and instead of running from it, we should face it. Thanks for listening to my TED Talk.